Greetings and welcome to Unveiling Reality. How's everybody doing out there? Hope you guys are all doing and living well. First, let me thank all those recurring YouTube members scrolling at the bottom of the screen. The ones with the prepaid super chats every month. The guys who help keep the channel going. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. All right, how's my crowd doing out there this evening? Wolfram, thanks for dropping these links. He wipes his paws, he lopes it and howls. Grimm's Bar, I was hoping you'd be here tonight. How's it going? This is right up your alley. I think you'll dig it. We'll see what you have to add to this one. We're going to do the history of the universe tonight. Evelyn Cox, how you doing? Welcome. So happy you guys are here. And there's Shelly. All right. Thanks so much for being here this evening. Well, this is the Outer Veils series kickoff, part 1. So, in order to kind of start this one off, first I need to explain what it is we're doing here and why we're doing it, and why we're starting out by doing some cosmology. Or did I say cosmology? Is that right? I call it's not astrology. Cosmology, cosmicology. Anyways, study of the universe. Why we're going to go out that far, right? And what we're going to do is kind of understand where we are in this big old crazy universe, and it helps kind of adjust your mind to the concepts we're going to be getting into in the outer veils, because these are maybe one way, maybe they're not even veils, but they're kind of veils in a sense of your what you're learning and how things kind of one thing leads to another. But I think they fit in as veils. Let me take a look at this real quick. There's the board. We haven't seen this in a while. As you can see, we've done a great number on the veils of perception here in our day-to-day world. We've done a number on those. We've definitely been cutting through all that over the course of these years, or year, or however long it's been. Time flies when you're on YouTube. When you're streaming, time flies. But yeah, we covered all these topics, and we've talked about these veils, the first 4 or 5 veils, very, very exclusively, very detailed, and to understand how these veils of perception, right, work and how they could equate to a bigger system of control and dominance over us, and what we need to do to kind of break these veils down to get back to a more honest reality. But long-term goals, short-term goals, all wrapped into here. What we need to focus on now, what we don't need to focus on, what we don't need to be involved in that aren't helpful. And as well as solutions, right? Because the solutions is the key thing here. And that's solution culture, where we always go to look at the long-term solutions to these very real, very present problems in our world. But there's also another part to this. There's these outer veils, right? And once you get out in these outer veils, you start to see how the inner veils work better. And that's why we have them. We kind of get granular in the sense of we start asking the bigger questions about who we are, where we are, why we're here, and what this all means. What are we looking at here? What's going on in this life that we have? What is this life that we have? These are the bigger questions at the outer veil. Exploring that, learning those concepts and talking about it philosophically, of course, and really interacting together. We can have a lot of fun with, but also they're the fun questions. They're like the what and the why and the who and the where of all existence itself. And the idea with these outer veils is that when you understand these, and I'm not saying that we're going to, completely in any way, shape, or form, we're kind of taking this journey together, right? This exploration together, that we will come out with a better sense of the true nature of reality. Right. And in knowing, having a better sense of, or maybe understanding the true nature of reality, right, we'll come up to some of these bigger questions. Then, like I said, the unknown, right? The unknown. I don't expect us to figure these things out, but to have a better maybe idea of what they are and and especially what they're not, right? Maybe that's more about what it is. But if you understand the true nature of reality, right, you're probably more closer to understanding what's after death, and then through that understanding the meaning of life. These are the biggest questions, right? The two biggest questions out there. What's after death and what's the meaning of life? They really are. But to understand these, even entertain these ideas, right, without someone just spoon feeding you their ideas, right? So, but dogmatic, whatever it is, right, or nothing. Um, we just take a trip. We take a trip together and we try to figure some stuff out, right? No, nobody wants to think that there's nothing after death. Nobody wants to think that life is meaningless. And maybe they are. Maybe there is nothing. Maybe it is meaningless. But are you willing to settle on that and just kind of go back to, or you want to make damn sure you're right? So if you think you're right about these things, it's a good chance to sit and talk about it and challenge it. Why not challenge it? Why not vet it? We always got to vet our ideas. Um, so that's kind of the introduction, and we're going to be going through these veils, these outer veils, leading ourselves up to the big kind of like three-part series or more on universal parameters and natural law and what these mean, how these kind of drive reality. So what I put up here is the overarching drivers of reality. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of the outer veils. And we'll be hitting these concepts. So as you can see, there's not a whole bunch compared to the inner veils, right? The ones, the veils of perception that are over here, right? That's what I was saying. These could be divided into two different groups. These being the veils of perception that we live in and day out, and how mind control and how these what we're dealing with day in and day out work, right? Where they come from, the things that are driving them, the enablement of these mechanisms, these institutions, these individuals that propagate it, right? What they plan to get out of it. All these things we've talked about an unveiling reality for a very long time. And we also have watched several documentaries on old school watch party Sundays as well. So those are all there. They're playlists on YouTube and on Rumble for you to access. If you've missed any of this stuff or any of these topics interest you, I've probably covered it. And you will have plenty of content to look at to catch up if you haven't. But these could be taken individually as well. These two series. The one that were the Outer Veil series, right? It's best name I come up with it. Come up with for it at the moment. The They can be taken separately because right now these are more like the idea realms, right? This is the realm of did I that disappeared when I did the presentation. I usually have like little labels up here. Anyways, and I say in this, ideas are in tension with an agenda. And they really are, if you think about it. Where do these intentions come from? And so if you notice in these two veils, 6 and 7, I have this dividing line right here, unlike the other things that I show here, because these represent of paths, right? Of ways. And I'll explain these more as we go along, right? But as the choices, the ideas we adopt, the actions that we take can flow between one of these halves, right? And we tend to think of them going out like this, right? But really, I think they're going this way. They're coming in towards us, right? So, which ideas do we adopt? Which ones do we follow? What does our energy ultimately lead to? Right? Does it lead to a good outcome or a bad outcome? Does it lead to these concepts of um, authoritarianism or concept of humanity, freedom, self ownership, things like that? Where does our energy go? And what is it? Why is it that it kind of seems to be split between these two things? I think we all can agree that there's this. Hey, Jacob, what's up? I think we all can agree that there's this overarching battle of good and evil going on in this world. But why? Right? What is it about this concept? And it's of course this is our human take on things. Like I said, we're gonna be learning this together as we go. I probably have as many questions out here as you guys do. I just kind of have like a little framework to work with here and things that I've observed, and I've kind of drilled down to the roots on these things. So I understand that, these concepts come from this place of goodness, right? These concepts come from this place of evil outcomes, right? Slavery, authoritarianism, superiority, totalitarianism, right? The idea that people are property and they are here to be used up by individuals, like the very narcissistic worldview, right? Or people who tend to lead towards good and understand that free will is a gift and that it's a power that we have, that we get our rights from life, right? And we strive for humanity, for self-ownership, and to work together in an organized yet chaos way, right? Not a top-down authoritarianistic way, but an immersive way. Spontaneous order is what it is, right? Where things fit together nicely when you're on the same path. And we don't need to have an overarching uh authoritarian structure for the most part. Hey, Daisy girl, how you doing? Right? So we have to explore these things. So then we're going to explore them together, and that's the outer veils. So we'll be hitting concepts within these veils all the way along, and then we'll get to the natural law section, which is going to take a lot of explaining. But to do that, we need to kind of understand the bigger moral kind of issues in the world, and where there's decisions, there's intentions, these ideas lead us, right? So they can see that if you follow the top half of these veils here, you're kind of following the darkness, following the destructive path, the evil path, right? You tend to land on with these ideas, feeling like these ideas are proper. Totalitarianism, superiority, authoritarianism. I'll add more to this as I go, right? This is a light structure. And then the people that tend to follow this path, jump over fifth veil, tend to land in or work for the fourth veil, cycle of control, elitism, this global ownership class that has been dominating us, right? It's basically because of their dominance has spawned this show, and it spawned the resistance to things like authoritarianism and superiority, which is just elitism. Another way, it's just the idea of elitism, right? Elitism being an idea, right, of superiority and authoritarianism, right? So they you can see where the paths kind of lead, but if you're following the free will, the good path, the light path, the free will path, right? Then you would want to be here in the fifth veil with us in solution culture, right? Trying to counteract the evil, the darkness, light, good, evil, darkness, right? And then we get into like the mechanisms and what we're kind of born into and what we face and where these ideas lie, where you find them. We've been through all this before. Yeah, you have to catch up on the series to kind of understand what we're talking about here. But as a small breakdown of it, the world that we're born into today exists in these first four veils, right? The world that we're striving for, or the reformation of this world, would be in the fifth veil, the solution culture veil, which is where we stand here. This channel, the people here have been here for the ride. The people who understand this concept and where we want to be when all this collapses, when all this goes down, right? We don't want to be stuck out here in the conspiracy grift world. We don't want to be stuck under the establishment narrative, right? We don't want to be enabling the cycle of abuse. We want to be countering it, because that enables the cycle of control, which is why we are always under the thumb of a bunch of elitists. This is my philosophy. This is how I break it down, how I can explain it best. Take it from it what you will, but I've put an entire program together explaining these things. So check it out for sure. I think you'll get the concept as you go, and always feel free to ask me questions. Please do. But tonight, in order to understand, I believe, in order to understand these outer veils, right? And this is let me stop the presentation here, because universal nature, right? See, attention-driven actions, which solution culture would fall under, right? But really, right in this area, then universal nature, the fundamental nature of the universe, outside of humanity, outside of the human race, and so on. Are these concepts of good and evil? Are they universal nature, or are they human nature? Is it something bigger That's why I put in darkness, destruction, light, creation, because light versus dark, right? There's this ongoing battle there. We tend to associate light with good. And before I get into demonic trinity and holy trinity, I'm just kind of hitting the high level here. And creation versus destruction, right? There's a duality to that as well. And they all tend to fall on the sides of either good or evil. And these are terms that we've given these things, right, as humans. And I often like to point out how close these words are to God and devil, right? D evil. So it could have been very well a D drop from that at some point. But it's so close. It's always amazed me. Or an O added. Good God, good God. You know, it's so close that, and it's been prevalent in our societies forever. These ideas, these energies, they deserve examination, and so that's what we're doing. Basically, taking a walk together. I'm not here to promise you have all the answers to these things. Like I know a lot more about the things we've covered in the past than what we're about to go into. But this is why I say I think it's going to open up the gates for all of us to talk and all of us to be very involved in the conversation. And I hope that you will. I really do. It'll make all the difference in the world. But I thought to myself, what better way to kick this series off? And I believe that this is the real occulted knowledge, the real hidden knowledge, that these things matter. And they are, because they matter, they result in our reality, right? They help form our reality. But what better way to kick off this evening than to actually understand where we are, what it looks like we are, and understand how minute and how small we are in this entire universe, how microscopic we are in this compared to the universe. Like it resets your mind in a way to take this journey to understanding these things, to understanding the nature of the world that we live in, our environment, not just on the earth, but in the universe itself. Like to refresh ourselves. In fact, there's some new knowledge in here. Most people's knowledge, let me go ahead and close this for now. Most people's knowledge. Oh yeah, I want to try this, by the way. You guys tell me, we're going to do a little experiment here. Tell me what you think. All right. Ready? This one. Okay, I already did that. Wait, well, I got to do this. Here we go. What do you think? You guys like this better? We're going to try this tonight. All right. I'm going to put this on. You guys leave your comments. If you want the old full avatar back, let me know. If you like this, maybe we'll go with this from now on. I'm just trying to change things up. And I've never tried doing a show this way. Like not since I, went and made the avatar. So you guys let me know what you think. I do have low latency on. Yes. So we can talk, ultra low. So we can talk very much real time. This is better. You like it? I feel like so boxed in. I can't. Wolfman likes it. Wolfman's a diehard regular, so I take that lot of weight on that comment right there for sure. So, anyways, as I've said a lot of times, right? As I've said a lot of times, it's very unique in this universe to be matter, to actually physically exist in any way, shape, or form. To be a grain of sand is unique and special in this universe. People say, well, hold on. Is that true? Well, when you think about how much empty space there is, when you think about how much dark matter or how much dark energy or whatever, right? How spaced out things are and how they continue to get spaced out. Oh, thanks, Evelyn. Thank you. Good to me. It's whatever you're comfortable with. Well, it's also, trying to if it helps keep it, people interested, or if it makes people more interested, that's good too, right? So I'm good either way. Ignore the box. The box does not exist. Expand your consciousness beyond the box. Right? I know I do. I like, if I could put a background on the box and still have a little audio indications, that would be nice too. But we'll try this. We'll do something different, right? But I've always said then if it's that unique and special to be matter in a 3D universe, imagine how unique and special it is to be conscious matter, to be in our position. The blessing it is. It is incredibly special. Now, at the same time, there could be many other places like ours and many other places in the universe, perhaps. Um, and that's fine. It still would make it unique and special to be matter, to be conscious matter. It's I think we in our day in, day out lives, we forget that. And I think when people are taking life for granted and taking things for granted, they forget that as well. Right. So this helps us reset, helps us kind of take a step back and remember how small and inconsequential we are compared to the universe, yet how unique and how special we are in it. And nothing does that better than understanding the world, the universe as it is. We do a little history lesson tonight. And while some of this stuff, it can get a little, it's going to be very sciencey and it can get a little monotonous at times. I'll try to break it up and talk. Your comments and your input will help this, and we'll make the most out of it. But I think it's very well done and it's very special. So you're going to learn a lot tonight. And if you stick with me till the end of this, you're going to have probably a new and better understanding of the universe itself, like where we are. I know that a lot of advancements have been made in the past years about this understanding. So this will be an update as well. I know that a lot of people's understanding of the universe kind of cuts off at the Milky Way galaxy, right? Maybe a tad further. But what I'm going to show you tonight is beyond that. It's the most up-to-date information about where the hell you are, where the hell we all are. So I'm excited to bring this to you. I think it's entertaining though. At times it's historical as well. You'll get meet the players behind the discoveries, how these discoveries came about, some of the equipment that's being used to do it. But more importantly, you're going to get a better understanding of where you are beyond the Milky Way galaxy and what that looks like. And I think it's very exciting. So, and in doing this exercise, we basically are preparing ourselves to think outside the realm of Earth, right? Outside the box of reality that we kind of exist in all the time, most days, almost every day. But where our minds are kind of like confined to. This is where you can really expand your mind and expand your thoughts to things you don't normally think about. And I challenge you and I hope and encourage you to do so, and to get the most out of this, and to actually bring your ideas to the table about what life is and what these things mean, and especially when we get to talking about good versus evil, and what is that concept really? Why does it exist? Understanding these things are going to help us better understand the rules of the world. And I'll get into my ideas about the automated world universe, right? Having this big picture of what the universe looks like as best we can get it helps frame your mind to thinking on these bigger ideas, concepts, and questions. So to prove my point, and I hope this video goes well, and I hope it doesn't, we don't have any issues with YouTube tonight. In case we do, by the way, we are on Rumble and X. And as I remind myself of that, I always go grab the X link, as I'm doing right now. Copying it over, and now it's in the description. And for anyone interested in watching on those platforms, I will pin it in the chat. I love it how it's always, you have a character count, it's always -1 for some reason. I always have to like combine free speech together. All right. What's up, guys? That's the introduction, and that's what we're going to be doing tonight. That means I got to change the banner up. It's not the kickoff show, but there you go. All right. So what are you guys doing? How you guys doing out there? Round winning in a square box. I'm not going to joke. He's in serious mode. Jesus. All right. Wraps the box in Christmas paper and goes, but he's so big he'd be like, it's in the hole. There we go. That's my girl. Oh, girl. All right. Cool. Let's do this. Let's do this. All right. And I hope people will stick with it because I do bring you the real deal. I try to bring you the real deal. I'm not up here posing. I'm not up here pretending to be something I'm not. I'm not up here trying to smooze you. I'm not up here trying to kiss your ass. I'm not up here trying to pretend, right? I just got what I got. And for those of us that want to learn and grow and know more about the world and understand it, and actually for those of us who really want to try to save our country and our existence, to preserve the freedom and liberties that we have, this is the place. We are the base place, right? We're based in reality, and to understand reality, you got to understand where the hell you are. And here we go.
This video has been made possible by UnveiLing.
Oh, by the way, let you know,
What is your address?
they got some good stuff
Not
on
just
here.
your house number or the name of your street. Where, actually, are you? In a town or a city which is in a country, on a continent, on Earth. But where is Earth? Why, it's in the solar system between Venus and Mars, you might say. But where is that?
I wonder, like, what if I just do this, like, while I'm watching, and then when I want to talk, I do that? Because when I'm just sitting here like this, it feels strange. I feel like I should be here and then go like that when I want to talk. Then I'll forget, right? All right, we'll just do this tonight.
The solar system is the main part of the Oort cloud, a vast collection of comets, asteroids, and icy objects swirling.
Yeah, just looking at the Pluto orb, right? The orb cloud. Just looking at that right there, you know, how small do you feel,
The
right?
fringes of the sun's sphere of influence. The Oort
The
cloud
Oort cloud
resides in the local interstellar cloud, which is in the local cavity of the Orion arm of the Milky Way galaxy.
There's the Milky Way.
Way is a spiral galaxy with beautiful sweeping arms of millions upon millions of stars.
Okay, so like as you're looking at this stuff, right? As you're looking at the universe itself, right? Try to like really just let your mind go, your imagination go, and think about this stuff, right? Like, what is that? What am I seeing here? Why is it the way it is? These are the kinds of things that I think about when I do this. More than just the words I'm hearing and the pictures that I'm seeing. I try to think beyond that, like why and how, and you know, I let the bigger questions bug me while I'm watching. Is the audio okay, guys? I'll turn up a little bit.
All rotating around a bright galactic core with a dark supermassive black hole at its center. At over 100,000 light years across, the Milky Way is vast, but it is still just a sliver of what we can see.
Yeah, you know, you had the black holes in the middle of these galaxies that obviously are helping. I believe are helping with the mobility of them, right? Or everything's dumping into them eventually, slowly. And then you're going to see that in some cases, that's what happens to galaxies. In other cases, galaxies collide and they entangle, and then they morph into one eats the other. They both eat each other, and they become something different, something new. Is this a way of some kind of universal sex, universal reproduction? Seems like the opposite, right? Where two becomes one, and then they just then become zero. Interesting. This is, again, I'm going to throw out thoughts and questions and stuff all along the way here. And you do the same thing. Let's see. There was supposed to be a supernova in the northern sky any night now. So bright we should be able to see it with the naked eye. All right. Well, keep us posted on that. I want to know about that. I'll try to see it. I mean, some of you guys will probably have better views than others. If you see it, take a picture. That's for sure.
Zoom out further and you will see a local group with 30 to 50 small galaxies and a monster on a collision course, the Andromeda Galaxy. Twice the size of the Milky Way, Andromeda is speeding towards us. We will collide in a few billion years, tearing each other apart before coalescing into one. But when you zoom out even further...
Okay, hold on. So if you guys are wondering how this all ends... If you're wondering how it all ends, there it is, right? This is this is how it's going to end one day. But you know, the truth of the matter is that we shouldn't be around by the time this happens, right? Our sun would have burned out by now. So honestly, the way it all ends here is the sun supernovas, right? Is that right? Supernovas, or does it just burns out and then hell follows, right? But the idea is that if we actually get our shit together and we learn about the nature of the universe, perhaps it's possible that the human race, the Earth human race, will be able to uh, continue, right? Maybe we would be able to escape our solar system and find a planet that has a sun that's going to last longer, right? Now, to escape this scenario, we'd have to find an entirely new galaxy, which, I mean, now we're really getting into some weird stuff, right? But if we don't understand the universe itself and what it is, we probably would never find out that perhaps there's a way out of that too. I don't know. Maybe there's no way out. That's the whole thing. That's the kind of questions we're asking. That's why we're watching the information,
apart
right?
before coalescing into one. But when you zoom out even further, the impending collision of two galaxies seems inconsequential. At the scale of millions of light years, the structure of the Virgo supercluster, a collection of thousands of galaxies, becomes apparent.
Look at this.
Dwarfing even that is the Laniakea supercluster, hundreds of millions of light years across, containing several other superclusters like our Virgo, and which is itself part of the Pisces Cetus supercluster complex.
Look at that for a second. Look at that. That's amazing. See, that this is where a lot of people's knowledge hasn't picked up, right? That they don't understand that what we're looking at here, we're like microscopic organisms. Our planet is a microscopic organism. Our solar system is a microscopic organism in this frame right here. And look at that. It's amazing. Why though? Why does it look like this? Like what makes it do this? See, Futurama had a cool depiction of the end of history, stuck in a time machine that only went forward. Well, the other thing I'm going to bring up tonight too, and that's a good point that you bring up in that comment about time machines and time travel. Is theoretically time travel is possible, dude. Okay, I believe that once you study the universe itself, you understand why time travel is not possible. I mean, I wish it was, and I think in a simulation of life it is. But if this is this non-simulation, matter of fact reality, everything we've seen up to this point is moving at an incredible rate, like so much faster than we realize. And he's going to go into how fast things are moving here in a little while. But you know, in order to be at that place and time that you want to be in the past, you'd have to be backwards in the universe. Like the universe would have to back up. If you were to get into a time machine and say, take me to 1969, right? And you jump in the time machine, you pop back out, you'd be in the middle of dark space, right? Because where the Earth was in 1969 is not where it is today. It's way, way, way away from that point. We just don't realize it. So it's not as easy as Superman flying around the Earth backwards, right? Or jumping in a time machine and popping up in the past, or DeLorean or something, 1.21 gigawatts, right? Because we have to account for where the planet and the solar system and the galaxy and the cluster and everything that he just talked about was at that time, that point in time. It was at a different coordinates entirely. So you would just end up in a void. So Superman has no fixes. All right, but look at that thing. Look at that thing. How many of you guys in the chat, tell me right now, how many of you guys, no matter where you are, have seen this picture before? And understand, Grim, are you still with me? Did I lose you? Have you seen this before? This is amazing. Like somewhere in one of these little strands, somewhere is us. But it looks like a hairy, like caterpillar, butterfly, angel kind of thing. I don't know. It looks like kind of like an angel, right? The wings out. But why? Why does it look like this?
a galactic filament almost a billion light years long. And it is now that the cosmic web...
Hold on, I want to back that up for a second. One more time.
Apparent. And dwarfing even that is the Laniakea supercluster,
Laniakea.
hundreds of millions of light years across, containing several other superclusters like our Virgo, and which is itself part of the Pisces Cetus supercluster complex, a galactic filament almost a billion light years long. And it is now that the cosmic web becomes visible. There are more filaments like our own, as well as great strings of superclusters. There are also giant stretches of space with virtually nothing in them.
So yeah, this filament, that filament we just saw that looks like corn silk, right, is now dwarfed inside of this. If I'm understanding this correctly, right? Now think about how that now we're inside the quantum verse, right? We're Ant-Man in the quantum verse. Yeah, the great attractors coming up. Yep. Yeah.
Like the Boötes Void, an area 330 million light years across in which we have discovered barely 60 galaxies.
That's amazing. Then there's this giant void, right? And what he's trying to do is point out that there's some kind of weird order to this thing. But then there's this giant void, right? Where there's just absolutely nothing.
An ink blot.
There's many of them.
On the speckled sky.
Yeah.
Zooming out further, we finally reach the edge of the observable universe.
Now, what does that look like before he talks? What does that look like? We're looking back now. We're looking at the visible edge, right, of the universe. Right? It looks like an explosion of sorts. This weird kind of thing, like on either side of it. I mean, I'm not saying this is the exact picture, right? This is obviously a recreation of what the data is showing. I don't believe that we have any telescopes on the outside of the universe looking back. I mean, so we have to take some of this with obviously with a grain of salt, but we're going by data. He's going to show us where the data comes from. And anybody who's better at this than I am, please chime in terms of understanding, these things, what we're looking at, how we're looking at it, anything you have to add. But it almost, if we were to take this verbatim, right, it almost looks like there was something right here in the middle that exploded, right? You got these kind of bands going around, maybe something that was, we don't understand that's blocking it, that exploded through, that created these, I don't know how much of what I'm looking at, is well, of course it's all again recreation, but how much of it in the recreation of the data modeling it, right, was is accurate, 100% accurate versus 80% to 50% or whatever. Yeah, almost like an inverted cat eye. Yeah, a little bit. Look at X right there.
Where primordial light has been traveling since nearly the beginning of time, 13.8 billion years.
I'm gonna back it up for a second.
It's been traveling on the speckled sky.
There we go.
Zooming out further, we finally reach the edge of the observable universe, where primordial light has been traveling since nearly the beginning of time, 13.8 billion years, to reach our eyes. But since then, of course, the universe has expanded further, meaning that the true distance to the edge is about 46 billion light years in one direction, meaning the full observable universe is a sphere 93 billion light years in diameter.
And we're just
structures any larger than a few billion light years are hard to define with our current technology, partially because we are trying to map something we inhabit, and partially because there may well be a limit, something scientists call the end of greatness. But at every level up to this point, planets, solar systems, galaxies, clusters, superclusters, the universe is full of structure. It is not a random and chaotic jumble. It seems organized. Yet the universe started as a hot, dense soup of particles. Why should it now be structured? Why did that hot soup evolve into a universe where some parts are filled with beautiful, sweeping arms of stars, while others are barren deserts? And more importantly, how do we know?
Yeah, so, and in that, what we find is that there are parameters to the universe, right? There are a set of rules somewhere.
How did we start this channel?
Okay.
To begin with, a lot of research and in-depth exploration of the universe's first moments. And a huge part of that was done through Wandrium.
So that's an ad, but they got good stuff on their channel, so check it out.
The year
I'm going
is
to be showing. I'm going to be bringing a lot of their stuff up here and there. So one show to another. I almost played this one on Old School Watch Party Sunday, but I decided not to. I decided, let's just do it tonight. All right, here we go. Hopefully I didn't screw that up too much. Let's go. Oh, you stop. There we go.
The year is 1502, and Nicolaus Copernicus should be studying medicine in Padua. It is the center for medical education in Europe. All the best teachers and students gather there to learn how to heal the sick. But Nicolaus is a polymath. He is learning medicine, but he's also reading Aristotle and Plutarch and Plato and finding holes in Ptolemy's theories in his spare time. Finishing his degree, he returns home to Poland to work as a physician for his father, though he doesn't forget about the cosmos or our place in it. And so, it is a decade later that he writes a pamphlet outlining his now...
Oh, what was that? This is Astrium? Yeah, I believe. Oh, you mean, okay, yeah.
For his father, though he doesn't forget Padua. It is the center for medical education in Europe. All the best teachers and students gather there to learn how to heal the sick. But Nicolaus is a polymath. He is learning medicine, but he's also reading Aristotle and Plutarch and Plato and finding holes in Ptolemy's theories in his spare time. Finishing his degree, he returns home to Poland to work as a physician for his father, though he doesn't forget
it's amazing they could do all this stuff back then.
Or our place in it. And so,
really
it is a decade later that he writes a pamphlet outlining his now ubiquitous theory. We are not the center of the universe. The Earth orbits the sun just like all the other planets. We are not special, Nicholas.
Nor do we need to be. Nor does that infringe upon any religious beliefs or anything like that, you know, that we're not the center of the universe. We exist where we can, like where the conditions are right. We're perfect, actually. I mean, perfect in a lot of ways. Not only for the environment, but for the time as well, to understand where we're at. And if we were born any earlier or any later, the species that is, right, we wouldn't have the opportunity to observe the universe the way we can today. We're born, the human species is existing in not only the perfect place, but the perfect time.
Klaus knows the uproar this will cause, so he doesn't
So being the center of the universe doesn't matter.
It is only in his 70th year, some say it's actually on his deathbed, that he approves the final copy, that the book finally comes out. And it shakes the very foundations of science, astronomy, philosophy, and religion. An idea so dangerous and fantastical that its proponents would be persecuted for decades after its publication. The heretical notion that our Earth is just the third planet among many. At the time, it was a shocking thought, but it marked only the beginning of a larger revelation. For if we are just some planet orbiting a random star, what does that make us?
Real quick, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and share this one out. Like, just let people know, hey, this is really cool stuff. Jump in here with us, you know, because, you know, people might not know that this is what we're talking about, and they might be interested in it. Maybe they think I'm talking about deprogramming a grift, or a conspiracy grift, or I'm talking about a real open conspiracy like the Agenda 2030 land or something like that. But make sure that other people know. There may be people that aren't generally interested in the inner veils, but they may be very interested in the outer veils. So they want to ask more philosophical questions. They want to get into the more of the conceptualization of how reality is formed and how it operates beyond the human realm. So this is the show for them. This is the series for them. They may really enjoy it. They may be sitting there watching something mindless right now, wishing they had more for their brain to chew on, and they might not know about it. So let them know, hey, this is a cool series. We're talking about universal stuff. We're talking about really interesting things. If you'd like to do that, please jump in and be part of it. All right. I'm hoping definitely to pick up some new subscribers and followers through this series that maybe normally wouldn't have tuned in, but may find this kind of approach and what we're talking about very interesting. I know YouTube is we're always kind of struggling on YouTube because there's just a bunch of checkout material out there that there's not a large community of people on YouTube that like to get into thinking very much. I don't mean to knock on YouTube, but I'm just saying that they tend to be more entertainment, distraction oriented, where Rumble tends to be more kind of like even then Rumble kind of like struggles on this show too. It's just like the thinkers, the deep thinkers, right? We want the deep thinkers is what I'm trying to say. Find the deep thinkers, let them know we're here.
Not special. It's a sad realization at first, but when we think deeper, it opens up a world of possibilities. If we are not special, what else is out there? Who else is out there to discover? Known as the Copernican principle, the idea is now a bedrock of modern cosmology and has two related tenets.
Cosmology.
The Earth is not special. We don't occupy some privileged position in the universe. Therefore, observations from the Earth should be relatively representative of observations from anywhere. One modern-day discovery that backed up this claim was the detection of the cosmic microwave background.
This is very interesting.
The CMB.
Now, you guys know you can see this anytime you want to, right? You can look at the CMB anytime you want to. Well, it was much easier when people had televisions in their house, right? Because when you turn the TV on, you can't get a channel. That what you're seeing on your screen there, that's the CMB. That's cosmic background radiation, right? That's what that is. So it's all around us at all times. We just don't notice it, and we've learned how to filter it out of our communications. But that's static.
Fuzzy background static, it permeates the sky, no matter in which direction you look. No matter how powerful your telescope, if you keep zooming in on a part of the sky with nothing in it, you will still detect faint microwave radiation, always with almost the same wavelength. Emitted at a time close to the beginning of the universe, at the moment when matter cooled down enough for protons to capture electrons and become clear gas, it is everywhere. In this regard, our bit of the universe is clearly not special. Outer space, no matter which direction you look, has a temperature of about 2.7 degrees Kelvin. It doesn't matter if you are floating in outer space near the Milky Way or past distant Methuselah, the average temperature of empty space is about the same. But there is an obvious issue with this, and one that doesn't require a high-powered telescope to recognize. Our cosmic address is full of huge structures. Galaxies, superclusters, great walls of stars hundreds of millions of light years across, and great voids with nothing in them. The universe clearly isn't totally uniform.
Yeah, that's an incredible depiction of the universe here when you scale back. Because like we look up at the sky every night, we see the stars, we see the moon, we see a lot of darkness, right? And we kind of frame our outer world as that. How often do people think of their outer world like this, and with this image in mind, being completely microscopic on this? And look at how bright that that one is right there, you know, like that's super bright. What's going on there? It's just so much curiosity to see these bands and like what do they represent? What could they resemble that are here on Earth? Do you ever like look at a microscope, like look at something in a microscope? Like that almost looks like it, doesn't it? Right? When you look, you can see like some kind of like, you know, big bacteria or something making these kind of structures. You know, and then more physical realm, uh, earth realm, spider webs or weaves of fiber and plants, you know, I mean, we see a lot of similar things, don't we? Like to what we say, as above, so below, the structures start to repeat. And wait till we get to the very outside of this thing. And when you see how true this concept is.
We aren't special, but there are structures. All large-scale structure in the universe can be explained by two opposing forces, expansion and gravity. The universe started hot and dense, and then underwent 3 phases of expansion. The first lasted a fraction of a second and was extreme. This is called inflation. It then continued to expand in a second stage for several billion years at a more reasonable rate, cooling down, spreading out, and slowing its expansion. And in the last few billion years, it has entered a third stage, in which expansion has accelerated again. And so what is responsible for these shifting regimes of expansion? The initial inflation has been theorized to have been caused by a mysterious field called the inflaton. The latter expansion, a mysterious energy so baffling it's simply known as dark energy. In truth, we don't know for sure, but what we are sure of is the existence of gravity, which has spent billions of years battling against the quickening expansion. When a part of the early universe became a bit denser, that overdensity attracted more matter, which consequently made it more massive, and so gravity acted even stronger to bring more matter in. Clouds of dust and gas became stars, which clumped into galaxies, and so on. It was and is gravity doing what gravity does, at its most basic level. Problem solved. But not quite.
But not quite.
Because you can't start this process with a totally even universe. Just where did the first overdensities come from? The best.
All right, this is the part where all the flat earthers and people who don't believe in the moon landing come rushing in to tell me that you know, NASA this, NASA that, NASA this, that. Oh man, nope. It really does what it's supposed to do. You know, they do some work.
Answers we have now started to be revealed with space telescopes in the late 1980s.
Here we go.
The race
Space
to map
telescope.
the entire universe to higher and higher resolution. The Cosmic Background Explorer, COBE, was launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base in Southern California by NASA in 1989. The Cold War was ending,
89.
and a new era of cooperation between global superpowers was about to begin. And what better way to start this new era than the first baby picture of the universe? COBE had a bold mission: take detailed images of the entire celestial sphere and tell us how uniform the background radiation really is. And so on April the 24th, 1992, the results were plastered on the front page of the New York Times. Scientists report profound insight on how time began.
Yeah, hey, thank you for that, Wolfram. Definitely make sure that you're subscribed and you ring that bell. YouTube's been draining my subs. We're getting ready to, if we don't add some new people soon, we're going to drop below 4,600, which would suck because it's a nice round number. That's about, you know, the only reason why. But yeah, you know, if I'm not adding subs, they're subtracting them. So we've dropped about 11 in the last month. So we need to add some folks in here to stay above 4,600. If you're out there, even if you're on Rumble and you happen to have a YouTube account, man, jump on over, man. Give me a sub over here. I'd appreciate it too. And we'll try to keep growing this YouTube side as best we can. More about YouTube censorship, other things like that, coming this week on probably Unrig the Game. Maybe a little talk about it on Old School Watch Party Sundays. But yeah, I got some new stuff to talk about in that realm. But yeah, thank you for that, Wolfram. We need to keep adding subs to the YouTube side as well. Now we're up to 432 over on Rumble, man. If you're watching on Rumble, or if you're rewatching on Rumble, please hit the follow for me, man. Join up with us, man. We want you to hang out with us, be part of the solution, be part of the base crowd. Follow Winning Reality. There you go. By the way, the Earth travels through space at 67,100 miles per hour. That's equivalent of flying from New York to London in 3 minutes. Yeah, exactly. So time makes time travel a little hard, doesn't it?
Kobe had mapped tiny variations, anisotropies, in the cosmic microwave background radiation. They were very small, just 1 part in 100,000, but they were there. This blockbuster result won 2 Nobel Prizes in 2006 for 2 of the lead astronomers on the telescope, John C. Mather and George F. Smoot, with the Nobel Committee marking it as the birth of cosmology as a precise science. The success of Kobe led NASA to launch another telescope in 2001 called the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe, or WMAP. This further proved the blockbuster capabilities of space telescopes, and instead of a vague smear of under and over dense regions, WMAP was able to tell fine structure, and patterns started to emerge. So again, in 2009, the Planck satellite was launched by the European Space Agency to get an even better picture of the baby universe. Each successive experiment kept demonstrating the same principle. There were tiny fluctuations in the very early universe, which, after being stretched out by expansion and clumped by gravity, led to the structures we see today. And there are dozens of other experiments, telescopes, and satellites, each discovering and mapping new parts of this structure. Back on Earth, one of the best telescopes for mapping the universe is the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. Perched on a mountain in New Mexico, this telescope creates a map of the whole sky in an unusual way. First, the astronomers take a regular optical image. Then, they create an aluminium plate with a precise hole drilled for each star or other astronomical object in the image. They then run a fiber optic cable from each of the holes in the plate to spectrographs, so they can find the colors of the stars and therefore find out how far away they are and how fast they're moving. These rainbow-collecting aluminium plates are each custom drilled and capture a unique slice of the universe. So far, over 10,000 plates have been drilled. By combining data from different surveys, astronomers managed to define Laniakea, our local supercluster, home. A group of thousands of galaxies all bound together by gravity. And our universe maps are filled with many more fantastical places. Of course, stretching out from our own local group of galaxies is the Virgo supercluster, whose tendrils connect into the Centaurus supercluster. Beyond that is the Perseus-Pisces supercluster and the South Pole Wall, which stretches across over 1 billion light-years. And the Sloan Great Wall is about 1 billion light-years in the other direction, an equally mammoth structure. And some astronomers believe that the Milky Way and a large part of Laniakea actually reside within another supermassive void, known as KBC, proposed to be almost 2 billion light-years in diameter, though its existence is still hotly debated. And even these have been dwarfed by a recent discovery. The giant arc was discovered in 2021 and is about 9 billion light-years away. It is thought to span 3.1 billion light-years, 3.5% of the observable cosmos, and is so huge it actually challenges our assumptions about the universe on the largest scales. If you zoom all the way out, a pattern appears. Filaments tie together into walls and clusters with large voids hanging between them. But what is the structure of this web? Is it like meatballs of matter in a soup of emptiness, or pancakes of matter arranged at jaunty angles? Surprisingly, answering this seemingly ridiculous question, which kitchen metaphor does the large-scale structure of our universe most resemble, would obsess the field of cosmology for decades. Truth, pride, and Nobel Prizes were at stake. At the largest scales, Is the universe like a meatball soup, a honeycomb, or a sponge? A grizzled veteran of the Soviet atomic program sits in his office in Moscow, contemplating the universe. How did the large-scale structure of the universe arise? He asks himself. Perhaps his contemplations make him hungry.
So yeah, this is an important part of understanding what it is. They had to decide, what was the structure that they're looking at from three different points of views. Meatball. Let's see, what was it? It was a meatball, honeycomb, or a sponge. I know Shelly's rooting for meatball. Wolford might be rooting for honeycomb. Let's see, whoever else is out there, you can be sponge, right?
For lunch. On the other side of the world, a mild-mannered Canadian sits in his office in Princeton, contemplating the universe. How do tiny particles become huge galaxies? Similarly, hunger-inducing thoughts. So perhaps he wanders down to the cafeteria for a...
And the one thing about this too is like, you got to realize 90, I don't even know, it's in the high 90s, right? Let's just say 99% of people don't even come close to ever having this information. I mean, they could tell you like the local gossip or how someone's life is being destroyed, but they can't tell you what they're living in looks like, right? That puts you guys on that top shelf of informed people for understanding this kind of stuff, right? When they look out of the sky, they see a dot here, a planet there, a planet there. They may have in their head, everything rotates around the sun. That's about the extent of that to where their brain can work. Their brain stops working after that. They can't grasp what else is out there, what is beyond what they've already, resigned themselves to know, right? They haven't kept going out and trying to learn more and trying to understand bigger and broader concepts. It does affect your ability to think on a broader level when you kind of confine yourself to that. That's why this exercise, again, is important in terms of really opening our minds to bigger ideas.
Break. The name of the astronomer in America is Jim Peebles. He would eventually win the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2019 for theoretical discoveries in physical cosmology. He and others of the American school believed that matter in the universe was organized like meatballs in a low-density soup. Matter would attract matter, which would attract more mass, clumping together in roughly spherical assemblies, leaving vast areas of low density. This was a bottom-up approach. The large-scale structure gets formed by clumping smaller-scale structures. Meanwhile, behind the Iron Curtain, Soviet astronomers were busy developing their own theory. Yakov Zeldovich was the Russian musing on the cosmos. By the 1970s, he was a renowned physicist who had cut his teeth in the Soviet nuclear program before turning his attention to the large-scale structure of the universe. He had developed a theory where the density in the universe was organized in 2D pancakes, and where the pancakes overlapped, you would have galaxy formation. In this way, the large-scale structure comes
Not
first,
bad either.
And galaxies are formed from them. In Zeldovich's universe, there are large empty voids with filaments on the edges of pancakes and clusters where pancakes intersect.
Filament pancakes, anyone?
Zeldovich was a brilliant scientist with a lot of sway in the Soviet Union, but because of his role, he was rarely, if ever, permitted to leave the USSR. His ideas therefore took longer to disseminate than they might have otherwise. And so at the height of the Cold War, you had Jim Peebles, a soft-spoken Canadian living in the USA, advocating for a universe dominated by meatball clumps, and the Russian school, led by a hardened veteran of the Soviet atomic program, believing in the pancake model. Meatballs
Soviet Russia,
versus
pancakes, Soviet you.
There's no evidence of animosity between the two, but without hard data, each stuck to their own beliefs. But luckily, between them was an unlikely interloper. Martin Rees, an English astronomer who would one day become the UK's Astronomer Royal. He acted as a sort of go-between for the American and Russian schools. The English were more permissive about which meetings they were allowed to attend than either the Americans or the Russians. And so, Rees's postdoc, a man from Kentucky named Richard Gott, then developed a third theory that better matches the findings of later experiments, like the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. Gott met Zeldovich at a conference in Estonia, then part of the USSR, in 1977. And this meeting, along with developments in observation, would lead to a new understanding of the universe. As recounted by Gott in his book The Cosmic Web, Zeldovich was a character. Always use the median, he said. In Russia, the watches are not made very well, so when friends get together, they compare the times on their watches. One says 5 minutes to 5, another says 5 o'clock, the other says 11 o'clock. Use the median. Inspired by the brilliant Soviet, Gott would develop a new theory. The universe is like a sponge. The topology of Gott's universe lies conceptually between the American meatballs and the Russian pancakes. According to him, high-density and low-density regions are connected and complementary. In other words, you could switch high-density for low-density, and it would be the same. As new maps like those from the Sloan Digital Sky Survey became available, this is the structure that was observed. Neither meatballs nor pancakes, but a sponge. But this is not
I'm going to take a look at what they're showing us here.
Everything that our
I think of these marks like that, they go like that, or like part of the telescope itself.
Telescopes have seen.
They're moving
As
in
our
layers.
methods of scanning the skies have improved, and we have seen further and further back in time with increasing detail, something strange has been observed. A phenomena referred to by some as the end of greatness. This
is very interesting. This is the part where you're gonna be like, dang, right? Because when you go out far enough, you really start to see what it is.
At around 1 billion light years, the universe finally becomes homogeneous, the same everywhere.
Yeah, see, the same everywhere. Becomes homogeneous. Not phobic, genius.
Large-scale structure disappears. Why?
That just looks like, yeah, it does look like a giant sponge. Like
imagine you are in Ecuador, standing on the equator. Look up in the night sky with a powerful telescope and observe the cosmic microwave background radiation in all of its majesty. Take a careful measurement of its temperature. Now fly to Indonesia, on the equator, on the exact opposite side of the Earth, and look up. If you take a careful measurement of the temperature of the CMB, you'll find it matches the measurement you took in Ecuador. The light from each point took about 14 billion years to reach you, meaning the points would now be 28 billion light-years apart, except that space has been expanding in the intervening years, so they're really much farther away than that. And yet, the universe is only about 13.8 billion years old. To put it simply, there hadn't been enough time for the light that you saw in Indonesia to have reached the light you saw in Ecuador. So how could they possibly be the same temperature? How could they know what temperature to agree on if they couldn't thermodynamically talk to each other? Perhaps it's a coincidence. So you pick two other random points in the sky. They will also match temperature to within 1 part in 100,000. This is the horizon problem. When you look at the microwave background radiation, it is extremely uniform. When you look at colorful images from experiments like WMAP or Planck, the color differences are deceptive. The differences between red and blue are actually tiny. They are differences of 1 part in 100,000. For almost all intents and purposes, that's the same temperature. And so this poses a fundamental physical challenge. And it is one of the reasons for the development of the idea of inflation. The theory, proposed by Alan Guth in the 1980s, is that there must have been some very rapid expansion in the early universe. With inflation, parts of the universe that are now separated by unimaginable distances could have been in very close proximity in the past. But in order for inflation to solve the horizon problem, the expansion would have to have taken place much faster than the speed of light. This may seem counterintuitive because of the universal speed limit of light, but that only applies to matter and energy within the universe. Space itself doesn't need to obey this speed limit. In fact, due to the rate of expansion of the universe, space today is still expanding faster than the speed of light. Two galaxies more than 15 to 20 billion light years apart would be moving away from each other faster than light. This means that the part of the universe you saw in Indonesia and the part you saw in Ecuador used to be much closer together. So close, in fact, that they could equilibrate and cause the haze of uniformity that we see when we look out. But of course, inflation is an extraordinary claim, for which extraordinary evidence is required, and definitive observational proof for this theory remains elusive. Despite this, indirect proof continues to pile up, which makes inflation an attractive theory. As we know.
All right, so again, as we're going through this, right, because there's a lot of detail here. We're halfway through this. A lot of detail. It's for the people who want to learn more. But at the same time, the rest of us, or anybody else that is, just keep thinking about what is it we're looking at and why like this. You know, those questions are the ones you want to kind of like just be mulling over, even if you don't get all the details and the background and the history and all that stuff. That's just for, you know, complete context, right? I'm showing that for complete context. But in terms of what we're trying to learn here about the outer veils and why it's important to understand where you live and where we are, we have to understand the dynamics of the everything we're working with, right? And why, if you have a certain belief system or whatever it is, why this shape, why this creation, why this mechanism? You know, what does it represent, say, outside the universe? She's bending your brain and go away. I know it's going to bend a lot of people's brains, and believe me, there's a reason why only 1% or less of people on Earth know this information, right? Because, you know, we start out with you know 15 people on YouTube. We go down to 7, right? So it's just the, you know, and that's what I'm trying to offer a different perspective here on this as we learn the information. People don't think that they a lot of times they don't think that they deserve to know this information. And if I could say it like that, like they don't think that they are smart enough to understand the information, or that they have to understand everything they're hearing in order to really get it. You don't, right? You just go along for the ride, take it all in. Remember what we're really after here. We're trying just to understand the nature of reality, right? Understanding the physical structure and the history of the universe helps us understand better the nature of reality, right? And the parameters within the third dimensional universe that we live in. That's our key takeaways as a group, right? The details and the history and stuff, that's all well and good. I find it interesting. Other people I know find it interesting. But you know, for those people who maybe get discouraged by the amount of information that's coming in, all these big words and all these people you've never heard of and all these theories you've never heard of, dude, don't let that get to you. I probably should have said that before we started, but don't let that get to you. Right? Just keep looking at just keep asking yourself, what am I looking at? And try to figure that out on your own level. Right? Terminologies and remembering names and dates and places and people, that shit don't matter. What matters is what you can take away from understanding where you live and where you are and what this is. You, even knowing very little about all this, could come up with a brilliant idea. You could have a brilliant introspection, which your lack of knowledge provides you, versus this guy that's talking about this, who seems like a complete expert on the subject, right? I'm by no means an expert on the subject, but I do approach it like that. I look at, like, well, what am I looking at here? He's talking, I'm listening, I'm taking some stuff in, but I'm still looking at this picture going, what is this? Right? And it looks like the static on the television set, doesn't it? It really does. It's like, again, and that's what fascinates me about all this. is that, you know, the macro to micro part of the universe. I think there's answers in that. Something keeps telling me that there is. The further you go in, the more you see. The further you go in, the more you see what's further out. I guess the fractal nature, someone would call it, right? Just hope you don't turn into Klingons. Yeah, right. And if we ever want to explore space, or like even like realize if the government's telling us the truth about exploring space or the possibilities of it, or whatever, whoever's in charge at that point, right? Knowing this information helps too. But really, just let your imagination fly. If it's coming from a godly place, that's great. You know, ask yourself why does God create things like this in the way He does? What's the purpose? What is this? It has to have some kind of divine purpose, right? What is this big divine purpose for this little microscopic place that we live, right? To have all this around it. If you're coming from a scientific standpoint, you know, how does this relate to our reality? And how, you know, how does all these energies and everything that's going on, these influences out there, right, that have impact on us in every way, from very far out to very close to us. You know, what is it all? How? Why is it like this? You know, the fact that it resembles a cell. You know, at some level, that things repeat, the patterns repeat, no matter big or small. That's the interesting point for you guys. Let's all bring it home though when we talk about it.
A universe that underwent inflation would be homogeneous, which on large scales ours is. An inflationary universe would also be flat, which ours appears to be. This flatness refers not to the number of dimensions, but instead to the effect of the density of matter and energy in the universe. Cosmologists can measure the shape of the universe in two independent ways. First, they can count up all the mass and energy in the universe and divide it by the critical energy density, the density at which the universe would be flat. And they can also measure it geometrically by measuring angles. On a positively curved sphere, like the Earth, a triangle drawn on the surface will have angles that add up to more than 180 degrees. The 3D geometry of the universe would be closed like this if it had more stuff in it. Eventually, gravity would pull everything together into a big crunch. In a universe with less stuff in it, expansion would continue forever and space would be hyperbolic. In a flat universe, straight lines and angles make sense. Triangles have angles that add up to 180 degrees. Results from both types of experiment show that what we have is a flat universe. Another plus point for inflation. And so this is strong evidence for the theory. But how then did inflation work to make the universe we see? One of almost perfect homogeneity, but not exactly perfect. Much, of course, can be gleaned from the universe's baby picture, the CMB, which shows us the after effects of very early fluctuations in density in the early universe. But anything before the CMB is obscured by the fact that everything was too hot for light to travel in straight lines. Excited electrons kept getting in the way, and inflation is supposed to have happened within a tiny fraction of a second after the birth of the universe. And so, there are nearly 380,000 years of physics that are hidden by the haze of 3-degree radiation. Where did these early fluctuations seen in the CMB come from? It's easy to point at a tree and explain that it grew from a seed. But where did the seed come from? Imagine a box with nothing in it. Close the lid so no light can get in. Take all the air out with a pump and seal it. Cool it down to absolute zero. Insulate it with lead so no radiation can penetrate. Is it empty? No. The universe is a fundamentally noisy place. There is no such thing as truly empty space. Even if there were no matter inside the box, space is always permeated by quantum fields with different values at different positions. One of these fields, the Higgs field, gives things mass. Another, the electromagnetic field, gives things charge and carries light. One of the big discoveries of early modern physics, by the likes of Heisenberg, Einstein, and Planck, was the inherent noisiness of the universe. There is uncertainty at the smallest scales, which shows up as a faint buzz in the quantum fields. At the quantum level, even empty space is filled with quantum fields whose values are varying randomly. But why is this important for the large-scale structure of the universe? To answer that question, we have to go back to the very start. In the beginning, the observable universe was hot, dense, and tiny. The also tiny quantum fluctuations were buzzing along, with very small differences in the roiling patchwork of energy fields, as they do today. And then, suddenly and dramatically, inflation. The universe rapidly expanded by 26 orders of magnitude in a tiny fraction of a second. Changes this extreme are hard to describe. We don't have the words to properly conjure the scale of this explosion in our heads. 26 orders of magnitude is a grain of sand 1 millimeter across expanding to a septillion meters across. That's 100 million light years, something on the scale
amazing.
of Laniakea. And the violence of this detonation was staggering. In 10 to the minus 33 seconds, the observable universe went from microscopic to huge.
Okay, right there. That's one of the key things. We've got about 16, 17 minutes left in this video. That's one of the key things. It's like, why? What was the catalyst for the explosion that expanded something so small and something so large that quickly? That's going to be very interesting as we go that concept, right? How fast it happened relative to us, it sounds amazing, right? Because we're microscopic compared to it. The fact that the event itself happened and we don't understand why, like bursting into 3D space is what happened. The way I'm looking at it is like something bursted into 3D space from somewhere else. Could this have been the expansion from 2 dimensions to 3? Could it be something like that? That this was an evolutionary part of existence itself? I don't know. We started getting into talking about the, what is life and so on, right? What is our purpose on Earth? And how and then we take that concept and we put it around the universal laws, universal parameters and natural laws that we experience here, and how those affect what we deal with on a day in and day out basis, just trying to survive and exist, right? Is it natural the way it is? Is it someone taking the information that they understand about the true nature of all these things and manipulated it to favor them? Questions people ask every day on a very small scale. But we're asking the bigger questions, like, is there people with advanced, or not advanced, but well, I guess advanced compared to most people, advanced knowledge or old knowledge or the right answers, understand how the rules of the place run and how they can use those rules to their advantage to be in a superior position. These are things we want to find out. These are part of the reasons why we examine the outer veils, right? Not to mention just to ask and answer the bigger questions if we can, come close as we, get some good theories going. I'd love to hear someone hit me with something I haven't never heard of before, their take on it. I always love getting those takes from people. But the at our scale, this just seems enormous and massive and wild. But if that grain of sand was just a grain of sand and it went out to the size of a quarter, right? That would still be amazing. But that would kind of be like us looking at it from like a God level perspective, right? Just trying to kind of like scale it down a little bit. But why? Why did we bust into why did this occurrence happen? Right. And for all intents and purposes, probably created a third dimension. Like that's where I think this is really going. I think that the creation of the universe is really the creation of the third dimension. So why is that? Is it omnipotence trying to understand the dimensions? Is it evolution from 1 to 2 to 3 and beyond? Are we here as representatives to be the sensory organs, the sensory outreach for an omnipotent being to better understand a realm that they cannot exist in, other than to only in partial microscopic ways to actually sense and feel things in the third dimension, the dimension of creation. Because if you look at like all dimensions past the third dimensions, they just tend to deal with time, space, possibilities, and then doubling and tripling, right? 6 and 9, and it leads towards omnipotence, right? All things, all times, all places, all possibilities, omnipotent, right? So I asked the questions about this to get you to think about what is the significance of this occurrence. As massive as it may be, and as interesting as the structures may be, what we see today, what we're trying to figure out, in terms of understanding the true nature of reality and life itself, what are we looking at? What are we looking at here?
For all intents and purposes, the expansion was instantaneous, and so this inflation amplified the quantum noise of the vacuum into genuine differences in density, thus giving gravity all it needed to work its attractive magic, gathering mass together into stars, galaxies, superclusters, and filaments. These variations would have been the first seeds, inconceivably tiny quantum fluctuations, the forefathers of vast intergalactic filaments, many millions of light years in length, tiny acorns growing into vast forests. But that is not the end of the story. After inflation was complete, the universe continued to expand and cool down, but it remained extremely hot and dense. If the large-scale structure of the universe were purely shaped by the expansion of quantum fluctuations, you would expect everything to be distributed fairly randomly. Indeed, if you look at a population of galaxies and ask how far each galaxy is from each other galaxy in the population, you should see a simple relationship and regular clustering. Galaxies would tend to be fairly close together because of the clumping effect of gravity, and so you should be less and less likely to find two galaxies separated by larger distances. And yet this is not what astronomers see.
I think it's where we get the universal parameters right here. Like they're asking, like, why is it? Why is it? Why is it? Well, I believe in this overarching set of rules, right? And it's overarching automation. I think that's the most logical, in my perspective, that's the most logical way to operate something like this, right? Or for this to operate a confined space with rules that that dictate the third dimension. And so why these structures come out has something to do with the parameters of the universe. And that's my take on it. That has something to do with the parameters of the universe, what the overarching parameters are, the rule set that it must operate within. And that's what keeps the third dimension confined to the third dimension. So that's my take on it. That's from all my years of thinking about it and watching stuff like this and other things, is that it leads us up to that eighth veil.
When they do this kind of analysis, they observe one peak for galaxies that are close together, as expected, and another one for a separation of about 150 megaparsecs. What explains this overabundance at what seems like an arbitrary distance? The answer lies in what's known as baryon acoustic oscillations, galaxy dwarfing sound waves. For hundreds of thousands of years after the Big Bang, it was too hot for atomic nuclei to capture electrons. The universe was a sea of charged particles, and photons of light couldn't travel in straight lines. They would get bounced around, scattering in every direction until they hit the next stray electron. As it cooled, some of the regions that were more dense would pull more and more stuff in. But photons exert a pressure when they get too close together, and this pressure would push out, carrying some matter with it. And this is where dark matter entered the picture. Dark matter outweighs regular matter in the universe by 5 times. It was and remains the dominant gravitational force in our universe. The cosmic web of stars, galaxies, and filaments is really a web of dark matter, with regular matter tagging along. It accounts for something like 85% of the gravity in the universe, so everything from galaxy formation to star clustering and gravitational lensing is dictated by its properties.
And that's what I mean by
Yet we
being
still
conscious.
don't know
Matter is
what
unique.
it really
Special.
is. What we do know is that dark matter interacts gravitationally, but doesn't seem to be affected by electromagnetism, such as light, or the other fundamental forces. So, as clumps of density began to form in the early universe, the photons would eventually get squeezed so much that they would burst out in a ferocious wave of plasma, carrying some regular matter, also known as baryons, but leaving the dark matter behind in the center. Imagine a pebble dropped in a pool. There is a central splash and then concentric rings of ripples. Now imagine millions of pebbles dropped at slightly different times. It would create a complex jumble of splashes, ripples, and regions where the rings interacted. This was the state of the universe after inflation. But the universe was cooling. And once it reached 3000 Kelvin, protons were able to capture electrons and the phase changed. Instead of a bubbling, opaque plasma, it became a transparent gas. The moment the universe became transparent, the cosmic microwave background radiation escaped, and the expanding rings suddenly stopped because the photons that were carrying the matter were no longer coupled with that matter. The photons rushed off in a straight line, leaving the ring frozen at the distance it had reached. And that distance is 150 megaparsecs, exactly where we see the second bump in the graph of galaxy separations. This is one of the ways that cosmologists can see past the CMB, by deciphering the patterns in its seemingly random distribution. Dark matter is central to this story, and indeed the structuring of the universe that followed. In fact, in a lot of ways, dark matter is the true main character in the narrative of the universe, and yet lay almost completely undetected until the mid-20th century. Back in 1933, a young and ambitious Swiss astronomer named Fritz Zwicky noticed something odd about the speed of stars in a galaxy. He observed that two independent measures of the mass of a cluster of galaxies weren't lining up. If he counted up all the stars and added their mass, he got a number 10 times less than if he instead calculated the mass by looking at the speeds of the galaxies in the cluster. He thus concluded that there must be an enormous amount of unseen mass. However, it would be more than 30 years before further evidence would come to light, as pioneering astronomer Vera Rubin set her sights on spiral galaxies. In predicting the motions of stars around the center of galaxies, astronomers had always made three assumptions. 1. Gravity depends on distance and mass. The closer and more massive two objects are, the stronger gravity acts on them. 2. Spiral galaxies have most of their stars in the very bright central regions. And 3. Stars on the edge of galaxies would have less gravity acting on them and would travel more slowly. This is analogous to our own solar system. Most of the mass is contained in the Sun, so the close planets like Mercury, Venus, and Earth travel much faster than the gas giants Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. So imagine Vera Rubin's surprise when she observed the speeds of stars in nearby spiral galaxies. She found the relationship between speed and distance traced a straight line in her graph. Instead of acting like the solar system, the stars on the edges of spiral galaxies traveled just as fast as those in their cores. And so there was a fourth, hidden assumption that astronomers were making, which Rubin made explicit. While it was true that spiral galaxies have most of their stars in the central regions, stars don't account for most of the mass. In order to account for this increased speed, normal matter, stars, dust, nebulae, could only account for 15% of the total matter in the universe. So what was this dark matter? The leading theory currently is WIMPs, weakly interacting massive particles. These would be elementary particles like protons or neutrons, but would have peculiar properties. Unlike protons, which have a charge and interact with light, these WIMPs would be invisible and only interact with gravity. They would also need to be much heavier or much more numerous in order to make up for the missing mass in the universe. Today, we know that all galaxies except some dwarf galaxies have larger halos of dark matter surrounding them. Scientists estimate that the Milky Way's halo could extend up to 15 times further than the matter we can see. Searches for these particles at particle colliders like the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, at giant vats of noble gases in Antarctica, and other places have so far come up without definitive proof for the WIMP theory. But scientists are hopeful, as dark matter explains so much about the large-scale structure of the universe. It makes everything make sense. The echoes of baryonic shockwaves, the speeds of galaxies, and the patterns of clustering. In the growth of structure across the universe, normal matter, what we see and what we are, is only really a bit player. The main role in building the universe goes to this mysterious, invisible stuff. And so, from minuscule quantum fluctuations to galaxy dwarfing sound waves and finally vast tides of dark matter, our webbed universe was born. Problem solved? Not quite. There are further structural mysteries out there.
Oh yeah.
Mysteries we haven't even begun to unravel.
That's the truth. We'll keep going. That's why this stuff's so important and interesting.
We are all moving in the same direction. We're spinning on the Earth, which is revolving around the Sun, which is spiraling.
And this is like when you think about time travel, this is like where I go, right? This is why I don't think time travel is possible.
We're spinning on the Earth, which is revolving around the Sun, which is spiraling around the galaxy, which itself has motion. But zooming much further out, all the galaxies around us in Laniakea are pulled towards the same point in space. We are all moving in the same direction. But where are we going? As scientists studied the CMB for the first time, it became clear that our local group of galaxies was not stationary. It was moving relative to the CMB. In fact, we are rushing at around 1,000 kilometers a second towards a point 250 million light-years away. And this point was dubbed the Great Attractor.
There you go.
But what was
Jacob.
there? Why this particular point and not somewhere else? If, according to the Copernican principle, no point in space is more special than any other, why should so much mass move towards this one spot?
Yeah, good question, right? What does this mean here? The Great Attractor. Why are we all heading at the same speed towards this one place?
We didn't know then, and we still aren't sure. One challenge was that whatever we were heading for was very hard to observe because we had to look through the center of our own galaxy, an area known as the Zone of Avoidance, and one through which our view is obscured by interstellar dust. But we could see through it with X-rays, and this method revealed a group of galaxies known as the Noma Cluster. But this alone wasn't enough to cover the flow of galaxies, and so scientists watched the Great Attractor and came to a remarkable conclusion. It is itself in motion towards a greater source of mass. 650 million light-years away lingered a vast supercluster, the largest for 1 billion light-years. Known as the Shapley supercluster, this leviathan contains the mass of nearly 10,000 Milky Ways. But that wasn't the end. In 2017, researchers proposed a further element. Dubbed the dipole repeller, it is a large void in almost the exact opposite direction to the Shapley supercluster. Whereas Shapley pulls, this area of space doesn't literally repel, but its underdensity means it can't overcome more powerful gravitational forces. And we are sandwiched in the middle of this massive stellar flow, almost 1 billion light years across. Though this may seem unbeatably large, this is only the beginning of the structural oddities that appear in the large-scale mapping of the cosmos. One long-standing mystery that came to light in the early 2000s was related to the assumed homogeneity of our universe. The issue is fairly simple. If you divide the sphere of the CMB into 4 or 8, the top right is on average hotter than the bottom left. This effect disappears if you divide the sky into more and more pieces. But for the quadrupole and the octopole, the angle of the line between the hot part and the cold part matches almost exactly with the plane of our solar system. This is a result so odd that astronomers have named it the axis of evil because it threatens to break our most fundamental ideas about the universe.
The axis of evil. That's not original, is it?
Why would the background of the universe be aligned with our solar system? We don't know. Nobody does.
That's interesting, though. Align with our solar system out of all of them.
Scientist of the WMAP telescope, Charles Bennett, thinks it must be a coincidence. I do think that there is a bit of a psychological effect. People want to find unusual things. But even with new data from the Planck telescope, the effect is reproduced. In the words of Dominik Schwartz from the University of Bielefeld in Germany, for a long time, part of the community was hoping that this would go away. But it hasn't. It is still totally unexplained. We understand so much about our physical world. We can shoot satellites into the sky to take baby pictures of the universe and use these images to rewind the cosmos back to its first moments. Between general relativity and the standard model of particle physics, we think we have it all figured out. But there is much we do not know. Of course, in order to have structure in the universe, first, the universe must begin. So how did we get our start? What set off inflation? The answer to this question may be hidden in the patterns of the universe's largest structures. One idea is that in the primordial universe there is a roiling sea of dense vacuum energy, and it just takes something to set off an inflationary bubble, which then grows into a universe. But there's nothing saying ours was the only inflationary bubble. Perhaps another universe formed nearby, just on the other side of the CMB, and if it went through inflation, it might collide with us. So this is one big mystery that the CMB may yet hold the answer to. Great spots in the sky resulting from collisions with other bubble universes. We haven't seen anything yet, but even the possibility of evidence for multiverse theories is so sparse that merely a method to find a glimmer of proof is enough to excite scientists. Where are you? The observable universe, Laniakea, Virgo supercluster, local group, Milky Way, Orion arm, local cavity, local interstellar cloud, Oort cloud, solar system, Earth. At every scale, there is structure, there is order. This structure is governed by simple principles: gravity, which is dominated by dark matter, and expansion, which is now driven by dark energy, but which at one stage was the result of inflation. And yet these basic principles turn matter and energy into huge, beautiful structures, bathed in the warm glow of the cosmic microwave background radiation. Copernicus, Shapley, Zwicky, Rubin, Zeldovich, Peebles, Gott. All of these scientists and the teams that supported them have brought us this far in uncovering its secrets. And yet, despite all that we know, there are still mysteries out there, written in the stars.
Oh yeah, we got a long ways to go. We got a long ways to go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that.
You've been watching the entire history of the universe. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment to tell us what you think. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
There you go, man. So I hope that was informative and you enjoyed that, man. Very granular, very scientific-y, but still so much more to learn.
bathed in the warm glow of the method to find a glimmer of proof is enough to excite.
So much more to get. Do you like that? Good. For those of you guys who stuck around and got it and watched the whole thing, you learned a lot. You're a lot more smarter on the topic than you were before, an hour and 46 minutes ago. Guarantee that. Even rewatching it, I've learned more. So I'm glad that you guys did this with me and we did together, because these are the things that are really interesting in life, not someone else's problems, not drama. Not it's like these are the things that excite me. And this is the things I think that we are here to kind of try to learn and understand and spend our time contemplating. And we're so lucky to have the advancements in this day and age that we have that enable us to expand our minds and think about these things, right? And just think about the possibilities with the AI coming on, getting into the picture and going to join into the thinking, how much more we can learn, how much faster things can go once that technology is honed in and operating correctly and not just making shit up what it wants to. But man, to have that as an aid to help us think and on these massive scales is going to be amazing in our progress. And that's one of the good aspects of technology and the evolution of technology, is that bigger problem solving opportunities are going to present themselves. Not only just getting better at, solving the world's problems, solving the human problems, health and better health and disease, cures and managements and so on, but just trying to understand where the hell we are, where the hell we came from, and why we're here. To me, these are the biggest questions in life, and that these are some of the most important questions that a lot of people will go cradle to grave and never even be able to contemplate and get. But what is the meaning of life? Is it to figure this stuff out? Are we here to figure out what the hell's going on? To do our parts in our short lifetimes to add to this, even if it's just through our own research and thought, not becoming some major scientist or some, joining the top level think tanks in these areas. But just to observe, grab the data, take it back with us to wherever we came from. I have my philosophies about life and existence and God and all these things, right? And they tend to align with a lot of things. But when I take things into consideration about how the universe operates, taking the big picture look at our environment out, and I talk about, when I say environment now, I'm talking about universe, right? I'm not just talking about, where I'm sitting today. It helps try to form a better picture of it, right? That we really are here to feel, to observe, to think, and to bring some part of that part of what we've done in our lifetime back with us to perhaps a primary source, perhaps a very curious, all powerful primary source that sent us here to do just what we're doing, to be sensory probes, if you will, reproducing sensory probes that have meaningful lives, but to collect the data along the way. And this is how we do it. So much more to go as we explore the outer veils and what they mean, right? And again, why they veiled, most people don't. This part isn't. This is science, right? This is out there for people to grasp onto. Anybody in any state, any condition, any place in this world can click on this video or similar videos or study these topics and acquire this knowledge, right? But most people won't. Most people don't think that they're worthy of it for some reason, or they don't have confidence in themselves to sit through something and learn it and think about it. They don't think their opinions and their thoughts matter, but I say they do. They all do, and they're all step by step. Like what I know today about this is not what I knew 10 years ago about this. It grows and evolves as well, and then my thinking can evolve, right? But why do we have this ongoing battle of good and evil in this wild universe, right? Like I said, this is open information. It's not concealed. But we do this to set the parameters of what we're trying to look into when we talk about universal parameters, right? Because that would encompass everything, not just our world, but everything. Natural law would encompass our world. So that's kind of the difference in those two, as I see them, as I'm trying to lay them out, as I'm trying to make sense of them. And I want to make sense of them with you guys, people who are interested, people who are listening, watching, who have opinions and thoughts and really like to dive into this realm of thinking. Now's your time to interact. Now's your time to really put out your ideas and think about them as we go through these outer veils. No telling how long the series will go on. It probably won't be linear, like, a pop-up with a title, Outer Veils series, right? There'll be a part 2 as I figure out what that's going to be next, to how we frame things so that I can present them to you in the right way and try to get where I'm coming from across in a way that you understand. So we try to classify and categorize things into what we already know. This is way beyond that. Yeah, exactly. That's another reason why we stepped outside of everything and went into this little science field trip tonight, because I needed to get y'all's minds free from all the carnage of our everyday life and the confines of this little world we live in, and what we see with our very own eyes and what we hear with our ears, and the reach that we have as individuals, right? To remind you, where we are and how much more amazing that is, the universe itself and creation itself, and then our everyday dramas and trials and tribulations, though they are important. Some people have put a lot of energy in over the last several weeks and months into focusing on negative outcomes for people, right? Their trials and tribulations put on display, and they've spent their hours and their time on this earth, precious time being a unique, special, very special thing, individual in this universe, right? To be conscious life, as you can see, is very special, very unique. We are lucky, we are blessed, and they spent their time obsessing over things that, one, they cannot change, two, does nothing for them, and three, it doesn't get them any further in understanding why the hell they're here. But that's just the way things that go. But for you, the people who did spend time watching this with us tonight, and do come to the shows and do participate and are interested in what's going on here, all the different parts that are going on here. This isn't just the one thing we do. This is a new branch into what we've been doing already. Besides just analyzing the conditions that we were born into and the war that we're fighting, seemingly this war between good and evil, as we can see, just ideas that are out there in the ether that manifest themselves through actions and individual choices, and have consequences and benefits, right? All the things we're going to talk about in the outer veils, 6, 7, and 8. That these things matter, and that we can learn a lot about the meaning of life, perhaps get a glimpse in our understanding of what happens after we die, we leave this world, and what our purpose was here, outside of procreation and exploration, and being participants in the system of humanity. So that's what I think about the outer veils when I drew these ideas up, when I've kind of thought through what are the big drivers of reality, that at least the ones that we're experiencing here today and now, and what encompasses that, what encompasses the bigger world out there. These are the kind of things that I was thinking of, and how I'm trying to articulate them to you, so that we can have the bigger conversations. And maybe, just maybe, we'll figure some stuff out. Yeah, and we know the environment is very influential in our lives, physically, mentally, emotionally. To say that environmental isn't influential is just a way of rejecting things we can't understand yet. Yeah, exactly. We have we're definitely influenced by bigger things that we don't understand, like ideas. People talk about ideas. I think they exist in their minds, the bigger ideas that exist pre-exist. You know, my theory is that these ideas that are out there in the ether are you know, much older than us. These concepts must have a basis in some place, right? Like, why is there this overarching war between good and evil in our world? People may be able to simplify that. Maybe it's not as complicated as I make it, but but I do see that from the seventh veil, from the good and evil, people, all of our actions and all of our choices tend to fall into either one bucket or the other, benign to extreme, right? Having to do with how we mind the parameters and the natural law that exists, and that because of existence, because we're here. Like, why? So as we get into natural law and we understand that better, this is a primer for all that, right? Some of this stuff, it could be like, well, this, and this, but well, we haven't looked at natural law yet. So let's dig into that before we make any big decisions. But these are the questions I tell you to ask, that I ask myself, right? And we're all just trying to figure it out. And some of this stuff I may change, I may walk back as I get to learn it more, you know, and that's okay, because this is a great point to start. Now, maybe I'm dead on about it, or maybe I'm very close, but I won't know unless I go exploring it and challenge my own ideas, and that's something I've always said to everybody to do as well. It doesn't minimize it. It doesn't minimize religion at all. Religion can be an expression of these bigger ideas I'm talking about, right? You can still believe in this and believe in God. Absolutely. They aren't mutually exclusive. No, I don't think so. And in fact, like I said, I think that God, being omnipotent, being the creator, right, would have an automated system to run everything. He would set the natural boundaries. He would set the what is, you know, what are the parameters, like what of existence, of reality. And then it's up to us through our free will to make choices. And those choices will lead to benefits or consequences. In some cases, both, right? This depends on the nature of the choice and how that is a correspondence between you, I, and others, right? Our individual free will, our individual energies in this universe. How what I do affects you, and how what you do affects me. These are the rules that are laid out in some terms, right? As we try to understand them as human beings, from coming from a place that isn't human. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. And they all require faith. Of course, what requires the most faith in the world? That there's nothing to it. There was all just some big coincidence, some big accident. That there's nothing behind it. That requires the most faith. Yet what makes it a religion as well? Yes, atheists, you can't get out of it. You can't get out of it, but that's okay. We could atheist, agnostic, religious, whatever you are. We could all take this journey together. We could all think about the bigger questions together. It doesn't matter. Some people can default to religion, and that's fine. But I implore you not to cop out because of it, to keep going, to have that strong faith in what you're talking about. Look for God in the answers, right? This is just what we're seeing here could very well be what the expression, creation, the snap of a finger, or of a finger. Well, you know, the let there be light, right? There's the light right there in the middle. It could be able, and we could understand this and only be able to express it in creative ways. And that's where we get religion from. And that's where we get stories in the Holy Spirit. Like I said, as I've written down in the Outer Veils, let me just present that real quick on the as we head on out. You know, the Holy Trinity and the demonic Trinity. I believe there has to be, everything has kind of like a counterpoint, right? People usually say God, just God and devil, good and evil, right? Easy enough. But there seems to be a spirit of each that exists beyond the main characters, the main players here. And that's what made me come up with this idea of a demonic trinity and Holy Trinity. We already know about that. That kind of inspired it. I would believe there would have to be one on the other side that counters it, because there's this duality, there's this balance, and that's part of the universal parameters out there. And we have talked about these a little bit. In fact, I listed some of them early on. Universal, I call them universal laws over here. Duality, opposites, balance, imbalance, benefit, consequences, life, death, eternal now. Everything's, we live in the eternal now, right? Consent, free will. These are just some notes that I made early on, right? That help kind of put these together. That's where I'm coming from with this, right? And as we get into exploring these actual things, right? Probably together, I want to understand what drives people to evil, right? What drives them to this enslavement mentality? What drives them to this superiority complex, right? Is it a natural state of being, or is it manufactured? Or does the manufacturing of it throw things out of balance? And that's why we see so much evil in the world. Or is this a natural state? Is this the real battle for humanity? That's why we ask these questions. That's why we talk about these things. Is this the real battle that's going on? When I first saw the ideas of the veils of perception, it wasn't like this. I saw something completely different, right? And that led to kind of the same place almost, to realize that everything that we've gone through, they said mainstream media war, like they had a bunch of different ones that went through that. As people learned these, they became more and more awake. And their inevitable conclusion was, it was we find that it's God versus the devil or something like that. They had a religious ending to it. I wanted to make that into something more less religion based, but still along the same lines, right? As to say, it doesn't take a religion to know that there's good and evil in the world, right? Religion doesn't define good and evil. It doesn't create good and evil. Like it may define it in ways for us, but it doesn't create it. Like that, the existence of these concepts predate religion, if you will, right? But following these paths lead people in different directions in life, and it affects their choices. And these choices lead to benefits and consequences for other people and yourself. So as we ask the bigger question, what is the meaning of life? These are the kind of things I'm taking into consideration. Do they matter? Which path? Does it matter which path you take? Is this part of a natural cycle that some will naturally fall on this side of the line and some will naturally fall on this side of the line? And this balance must occur. These are important questions to ask when getting into the deep exercise of thinking about these type of topics, right? Things that don't pertain to our day in and day out lives, yet they do, right? Yet we spend a lot of our time talking about the good people do and the evil people do. We spend a lot of our time talking about the war between those who want to enslave us and those who want to live free. Almost at the bottom of every topic we talk about are these concepts. So as we talk about the topics we talk about on other shows, and nothing will change, because we're in the series, just the outer veil, it's all it is. Think about that. Think about what you're seeing in terms of the day in and day out topics, right? And from this point of view, this new filter, this new lens, right? This outer veil kind of lens. And see if you don't see the same thing I'm seeing, right? That these choices, these ideas influencing our choices, right, are at the bottom, or at the core of choices, right, seem to be in this dual state, right? And why is that? But to tell me if I'm wrong. It does seem like there's an ongoing war between good and evil. Are they individuals? Are they God and the devil? Are they just energies? Are they just creation and destruction? These are the questions we're just trying to ask. We're trying to vet what we know, right? Is it just a battle between the light and the dark? The light's trying to exist, the dark's trying to make sure it doesn't. All right. Sorry, I had to take a break there. I had some background noise to deal with. All right. So I've totally lost my train of thought now. So, anyways, these are the questions we want to ask. And this is the things that we're going to continue to look at as we go along. Let's read some chat here. Let's see. Shelly's giving us all kinds of good things to talk about here. All right. Let's see. Good Lord, I'm way behind. You've been writing a book out here. Environment. Let's see. Get labeled crazy. Unknown. Invokes fear or decision to discern. You get labeled crazy because it's not our norm in a textbook from rudimentary 5th grade science class. And it doesn't minimize religion at all. You can still believe in this. Yes. Okay. I saw that. Each requires faith. Yes. You can think of it as universal parts of God's creation, and energies components are his tools. Yes. And the automated system is his, right? They stress the mystery of God's plan. Yes, definitely. How can anyone know if this type of thing is part of the plan? Yeah, we don't. And we shouldn't ever rule it out. The universe is God's machine. Absolutely. We are gears and cogs in that machine. Yes, I believe in that. We are just hyper stressed our own importance in that machine. Yeah, we have to survive. It's part of our survival instinct, right? It's when people forget where they are. That's another reason why I wanted to show this tonight. Let me go ahead and move this. It's because so we can remember where we are. Well, that's just it. The devil tempts people into acting out in ways that disrupt our natural order. Yes, to make them feel more or evil, evil, to make them feel more important or more influential, so they aren't so inconsequential, right? And so then, yeah, gaining a power through gaining consent, right? More consent, the more power, the more because the consent is your free will allocated. Yes. So see, the devil attempts with don't you want to be as powerful as God? That's how we got Eve. See. It's like, don't you want more control to know more, to be more powerful in this world? And let me lead you there. Let me give you the and they give into temptation. Yeah, exactly. And very and it's very much the senses, right? It tempts with senses, pleasure, you know, pleasure, numbness, whatever, altered states of consciousness, all these things, right? That take us away from our purpose in our world and leading healthy lives, and has us consenting to more dark and evil things, right? It's always that temptation. God gave us free will, but also rules to live by. We can choose to follow or not. Right. There you go. Well, you got me thinking. That's good. Yep. Sin is rampant because it feels good in the moment. That's right. Well, that's the whole temptation. It brings you into darkness, and then the demons eat you from inside. That's a demonic spirit I'm talking about, like the Holy Spirit, dude, the demonic spirit. And we see it being expressed very well these days in all kinds of forms. The trans thing, I think, is a very much an expression of that. I think that you look at the queer weirdos that are like, that Bambi, that Death Bambi or whatever, that weird witch looking chick that's completely destroyed herself. She's, she's completely destroyed herself. Let's take a look. And we talk about this. We can pull the chart up, right? She's completely destroyed herself, right? So she's on the destruction side. She's destroyed beauty, destroyed things that are beautiful. She won't create life. She won't be. She thinks her music is creation, and music's fucking garbage, right? Bunch of screaming and yelling and pouting and jumping around like a child looking for attention, which most music is. But I mean, but hers to the extreme. And so when we see her choices, right? We put that person on display here. We can see that her choices tend to be like right here, right? She wants to force her way on people. I'm sure she's voting for authoritarian type. Didn't seem very base to me. But she probably sees people as probably, she probably follows this whole line. So her actions then lead into abuse, the cycle of abuse, right? In some way, shape, or form. The demoralization. Demoralized, completely demoralized. Would she welcome or resist destabilization? She would welcome it. Crisis, welcome it. Loves it. Feels like thriving in evil because she says, she's a witch, right? Witches are traditionally evil. Evil, destructive, demonic spirit. The demonic spirit drives the darkness. This is where I started coming up with these ideas. I'm like, And it seems like the Holy Spirit drives the light, drives the goodness, drives creation. Now you can believe that the Holy Spirit is God or is part of the Holy Trinity that's in the Bible, or perhaps it's part of this energetic side of life, this good. I don't know. See, I said I don't have all the answers here. I'm throwing out things the way I see it and looking for feedback from others. Lots of other people. Shelly's working her ass off for everybody right now. But all the cookies. She wants all the cookies. She is the embodiment of what regret looks like down the road. Oh yeah. And boy, is she gonna be that every day. Every day she ages, she gets closer to that. Oh God, man. Oh God. They destroy themselves and later often overcome by their mental issues because they can't undo the damage. Right. And that's the temptation. Right now she feels super powerful and super popular and like super enabled and validated for being, an evil presence on earth, a destructive presence on earth, right? A destructive influence. Like she's in the flow of evil. Yet the devil will come for his due, right? And that due will come out of that person's life. And unfortunately, by the time she realizes it, it'll be too late. And that's the path she chose. They eventually the check has to get paid. Hey, I love you, Shelly. There's Evelyn Cox. I'm glad you're out there, Evelyn. All right, guys. So that's the introduction, and that is where we are. That is the universe itself, up-to-date information. I hope it's been enlightening for you, and I hope that you have learned a bunch tonight. So we're gonna do a couple more things before we get out of here. Probably won't be too many current events in this series because we have so much introspection and philosophizing to do. I don't know how long it's going to go. Like, the introduction and kind of getting the parameters out there is a good start. I know that there's going to be part of this series is going to be talking about religion, talking about both sides of it, right? Like I really want to dive into both sides. So that's good and evil side. So and within that, religions that represent one or the other, perhaps mostly maybe Christianity versus Luciferianism. I want to understand because we want to understand if there's a large group of people working in these interests that are out there, what that looks like. I mean, like I said, one thing I haven't debunked yet, one thing I haven't really come to a big conclusion on is whether there is, the satanic agenda people talk about, to what degree that exists. Is it to the degree that Mark Passio talks about? Or is it, minor league cults full of people like, mental Bambi or whatever that thinger is, right? Like that, people like that running around. Now, just by being that they are spreading the essence of the demonic spirit, right? They're spreading it. They're making it, trying to make it attractive or normalized or something like that. So we can find evidence of that, right? We're all familiar with what, religious organizations do, right? But is there a religious agenda? There's not really, right? I don't know. We have to talk about that. So we'll get into those things as well. And then the bulk of this, ideally, most likely, is going to be in these universal and natural laws. Natural law probably will take 3 or 4 episodes to get through. I believe, maybe shorter, but I believe they're going to be. It's going to be a marathon, but it's going to be a very informative marathon when you learn about these things, and because you're going to be able to pull them back into day in and day out lives. Like when you make decisions, once you learn natural law, you'll keep natural law in mind when you make decisions. It's kind of how it works, because you'll realize there are consequences and benefits, So we have to examine this closely, and then we'll start to unveil the outer workings, the mechanisms of our reality. And once we have all these things in place, maybe we'll be closer to understanding the bigger questions in life. Or even if we don't, we'll know a lot about what it might likely be like. As of today, I lean towards the stay in the light, return to the light philosophy, right? That when you take this path right here, that it keeps the light within you that you're born with alive and well, and that is what's going to bring you home at the end of the day, at the end of the life, And for those who went the Bambi route, the dark Bambi route, or whatever her freaking name is, or who went this route and gave in to temptation and gave into, for lack of a better word, I don't want to say sin, but I mean, yeah, for lack of a better word, biblical sin, or just darkness, destruction, lack of care for others, lack of care for themselves, lack of care for their purpose in life, as a human being, lack of care for the species. All these things, I think, have an impact. So, destruction of self. And that's why I think religion is important in all this too, because it gives us those moral guidelines to keep us on the right path, right? So we don't extinguish our light in our lifetime, so that we can return to the source, if you will, in a way. And that source is God, and to return to, let's say that source is God, and to return to that source as God, with all the other people that stayed in the light, to reunite. That would be what people would be considering heaven, right? But what happens if you don't? What happens if you extinguish your light during your lifetime? Remember that phrase, God says that I will not know you. It's kind of like, how can you return to light if you're no longer light? How can you return to the source, which maybe, it could be God, it could be some kind of like alternate dimension, or outside, larger dimension existence, right? What if we all just get our own universe at the end of this? But you have to be in the light to get it, right? You have to pass the test. These are the things I'm talking about. Like, these are the questions we can ask, and the topics we can cover, and the conversations we can have about this. It's just so much to talk about. And I don't run across many channels and many places that actually do that, right? But I know that everybody has these questions. I know that everybody talks, wonders themselves about this. And if you're one of those people, then this series is going to be for you, as I sit here and meticulously mess with things. This series is going to be for you. This show is going to be for you. You're really going to enjoy it. But come here to chat. Come here to talk about it. Come here to be part of it. That way you get it out. That way you get to bounce off your philosophies with other people. You get to hear what theirs are, besides just me talking. You get to hear other people's philosophies as well. Like Shelly, she's letting it all fly. She's let Joe chime in. The religious stuff. He's very. I tried pushing, like, talking about this concept at one time. He kind of blew me off. Not, like, it kind of was like, okay, well, I called in on the show and he talked about religion and I explained it. He didn't seem interested in it. I think he's very, very committed to his ways of thinking about it. But I could be wrong. Maybe he would love to have a philosophical conversation about it, and just kind of leave the Judaism on the table for a minute and try to think outside the box a little bit as to what the Judaism or what his religion, how it would fit into this model, how it would, how where it falls on the side of good, right? Jewish tradition is very much about family, and that's a good thing. As we know, families are important in this world, and not having them causes mass amounts of destruction. So obviously, families are a good thing. And I don't know that not having a family basically is evil, but the lack of a harmed family, a broken family, is an evil thing, right? And not by itself, but the fact that it was broken is an act of evil, an act of destruction, right? That's a thing there too. And the influence that came from that didn't come from the light, right? A lot of times the problems that break up families are very dark things. They come out of the cycle of abuse, right? Down here in Third Veil, a lot of these things are what causes people to break. And of course, the cycle of abuse encompasses our everyday lives for people, whether you're in the first, second veil. These are basically the same thing, just cut off by a matter of perception, right? But they all exist in the same space. They all exist in the same world. So within these harmful institutions and practices is information-based mind control system, trauma-based mind control system that, the families are broken. And the idea that breaking families and the traditional family is wrong is a very evil idea. So see how I'm saying? This is how I do it. Everything can be tracked back to these things, to this idea, in one way or another. That's why I feel like it's like fundamentally this is the big fight that's going on in the world. Now, what we do about that, what we know about that is it a natural occurrence? Obviously it's natural in some way, but why? What's the point of this? Is it to overcome one or the other, or is it just to find a balance in it? Accepting one with the other, like the yin and the yang, right? And how do we deal with that and have a harmonious, safe world? Is that even possible? We may find out that none of that's possible. We may find out in the end that this is just the way things are, and that if you're going to be good and in the light, and you're going to live your life that way, you're going to have to go up against darkness. You're going to have to be dealing with people that are fully committed to it and ideas that are fully committed to it. So again, this goes back to what? Winning reality. It goes back to winning the reality from what we oppose, right? The anti-establishment to the establishment of evil, which are corruption or criminality, which is winning right now. Has won over time. Let's put it that way. But still, the fight is on. We need to be winning reality, right? We need to be the ones that are winning reality, because when we do, we have things like free will and self-ownership and a harmonious harmony down here, other things that can go down here that would be an outcome of when good is tipping the scales in its favor versus where evil is tipping the scales in its favor right now. And this dance that goes on between the two. This is the outer veils. Let's read some more. Let's see. I would totally have a convo with him over the religious aspects here. I've dipped my toes in a lot of the sin in life. You can come back from it. Yes, you can. You can. And the younger you are, the better chance you have of coming back from it. Only God is perfect. He doesn't expect perfection from us, just inherent goodness and good intent. Yeah, there you go. These are the intention-driven actions, right? So from that comes this realm of ideas, the overarching drivers of reality. The ideas are intentions with an agenda, right? The source of light can draw you back and cleanse you. It can, and it should, and it's supposed to. And boy, if you've gone from one side to the other, you really understand it better than most people. But it's beyond man's capacity to just accept that big of a change in anyone. Well, or they've been convinced that that's the way it is. We require proof, much like Doubting Thomas. Well, yeah, we'd like to understand. Okay, I'll get him to do it. All right. He's back to more serious topics than now than he was 6 months or a year ago. We'll see. You should ask Joe's dad. Interesting. What I don't want to do is get into a religious debate about that stuff. I love hearing the information about great logic. Yeah, Joe's dad. I don't like and good logic is Joe. Yeah, it's great logic. But I mean, isn't he a pastor or something? I mean, a pastor, a rabbi. He's not a pastor. Okay. Oh, he's going to be streaming. I'll redirect to him. Thank you for letting me know that. A lot of times, sometimes I forget to do that stuff. Good old Joe. I don't know why it's doing this to me. It's good logic. Hello? All right. I saved it. We're going to go to Joe next. And we're just about out of here. So, yeah, you said 5 minutes, Evelyn, or was that 5 minutes ago? Or am I just catching up? What's up? Let's see. You don't want a debate. You want to mine religious knowledge. Yes. Well, yeah. Yeah. So 25. We got 3 minutes. 3 minutes. We're going to end the show. I got a 2-minute outro, 1 minute and a half outro. All right. I got it all straight. We'll be arriving there shortly. Guys, I really do appreciate everybody that's been here tonight and been part of this and listening. It means a lot. I really would enjoy everybody's input. Everybody's input that is watching on whatever platform you're watching on. It means a lot because these are kind of things like I can talk a lot about other topics and I know a lot about them. I've studied up on them for decades. I've been to the bottom of the rabbit holes. I've stared into the abyss and come back. I've done all those things. But I need to, but I want to inspire others to think. I want to inspire others to talk about it. I want you to feel like this is a place that you can do it, right? So if you have people that are into this topic and you think may be interested in it, bring them along. It's always bring a friend night. All right. It's always bring a friend night. Like I said, some people may look at here and be like, oh, guys, I think he's too serious, or I don't care about what happens to the world, or, I'd rather do this or that. But then they may be really interested in philosophizing about what is the meaning of life and what may happen after death. And, what is the purpose of all this? And is there really a satanic agenda at work? I would say there's definitely a demonic spirit at work. There's definitely a Holy Spirit at work, out there. They're both looking for, they're both trying to recruit, right? They're both trying to recruit. And and I think that, a lot of people don't see that. They kind of just see a conglomeration of mix. And maybe I'm wrong, but it's just, from having done this for so long and heard all the stories and covered all the topics and all that stuff, I can't help but feel like there's a bigger battle going on. It could just be me. I'm not the only one who feels that way, but still, that there's a bigger battle going on in this world, and how our reality is based upon this bigger kind of outer veil battle that's going on. Is seventh veil and sixth veil, are they maybe they're the same thing? Maybe they're not veils, the realms. I don't know quite how to describe them. I'm just kind of gonna go in with the context of what I've already started. They may evolve. I may cut these things off and put them in a different place, but I think they all kind of go together in the context of this, of trying to figure out what the hell is going on in this world and why so much evil, so much of this authoritarian, totalitarian mindset, this lack of humanity mindset is seemingly winning out right now. And Shelly, do you think it's weird when you hear that word other places and automatically think back to me? Think about how weird it is when I have to say it and try to put it outside the context of the name. It's like, I always try to, you'll hear me pause almost every time. But, how do we stop this destruction of this harm to children, this harm to people, these psychopaths running the show here. That's why I've gone into this extra layer of understanding, because it's going to take more than just the intervales, I believe, to put a stop to it. Solution culture has to have a foundation and a reason and a way to get to do its job of unrigging the game, right? And it has to be seen as the alternative, right? The alternative to the fourth veil. The fifth veil is the alternative to the fourth veil. It's the solution to tyranny. It's working in the light. It's working in the spirit of free will, in the spirit of the holy, which just means in the light, right? It just means it's on the side of good, right? And through that, we create a better world. Creation. Through evil, they are destroying the world that we have, that we've been given this blessing of life. It's taking of the blessing from other people of life. We can go on and on about this. I want to save some more for another time. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to head on over to Joe. It's last words. Shelley, religion forever. Yes, you can talk about forever, and you do a great job doing that. Keep talking about what you find important and makes a difference. I will do. Tonight was freaking amazing for me. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Shelley's working hard, getting her. Hey, Zach, good to see you, buddy. Glad you're here, bud. Glad you're here. I'm sending us all over to Joe. Last minutes. Yes. Thank you for all of that. Thank you for everybody that was here. I will be back Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern for Winning Saturday Night, where we will be doing much more. We will be doing what we do on Winning Saturday Night. I'll have a topic for us, and then I'll have the normal spots, normal things that we do. And there's Jacob. All right, good. I'm glad you guys are all checking in, man. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. And I will see you Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, right back here on YouTube, Rumble, and X. And until then, everyone, keep on winning.